Greetings, housemates, and welcome to Master of Orion. So this is a remake of the classic 4X space strategy game, and I'm happy to be playing the early access. Lethe has already done a brief overview video of all of the standard races, a quick look at the custom race options, as well as a couple first turn playthrough, and I'll include links to those videos in the description if you want to check them out. I am going to do an in-depth, after a couple hours of play, look at the custom race options. So first off, you can choose your genetics up here. That is pretty much what you will look like, what your ships will look like, and you know, what other race you will not be playing against in the game, as I do not believe the game allows multiple races of the same kind to pop up in the same planet. I could be wrong though, and that could change since this is still early access version, I think 43.6. Then you have your available points. Every custom race, I believe every race starts with 100-point balance. Matter of fact, I'm sure of it because that's balanced. And to spend on goodies before they need to start taking penalties to increase their number of points so they can take more goodies. There is no limit to the number of negatives you can take, and if you take all of the worst negatives, you can get up to 430 points before you start spending them on goodies, and there are more than enough goodies to use up all those points. Also, the more points you leave on the table, that is, you select penalties that outweigh your bonuses, or you don't select your full capacity of bonuses, the higher your score is going to be. So if you were really going for the ultimate score, you could more than quadruple it by selecting pretty much the most inept race in history to ever make it to the stars. So let's talk about the relative value of these various options you have here. Note that in each section, until you get to, I believe, trading, the options are mutually exclusive, but then here you can start picking multiple ones. But of course, these other ones, well, it wouldn't make sense to be both high population growth and low population growth. And once again, this is all early access. I will mention any issues I've discovered with some of them, but they're likely to be fixed before the end. And I'm likely to have reported them, since they have a nice little bug report system in here, and that's what I do. So, Homeworld Size. Small, large, and huge are your options. This only determines the total capacity for population. It doesn't have an effect on how big your starting population is. And I think small is a decent penalty to take because your starting homeworld tends to shuttle a lot of population out into the universe, right? Because you need to colonize other places, you're building colony ships, each colony ship takes one of your population, allows you to put it somewhere else on a new world. And very early in the game, you get the ability to transfer population from one planet to another. So I think small is a decent penalty to take, as it doesn't reduce any of your planet's output, only this like long-term cap on population, and your homeworld tends to hemorrhage more population into the universe than any other planet. As for bonuses, large and huge are not bad choices. I think huge really isn't worth it. It'll take, unless you're playing a large map size and you expect the game to go on for a long time, you're not going to see much from this bonus for quite a while. Large, you'll start to see fairly like mid-game, I suspect. But then again, it may never matter if you keep expanding quickly, which is a huge part of the game and very beneficial. I will note that I've chosen small twice, and both times ended up with a low gravity planet, which was absolutely unfair. You get a 50% reduction. That is, I did not select low gravity tolerance and was given a low gravity homeworld, which is real bad because it reduces all of your output and everything by 50%, which totally sucks and makes the game, I would say, almost unwinnable. So yeah, also in the early access, large and huge could come with high gravity, and I think the penalty is, the penalty may be worse considering high gravity has a high gravity tolerance is more expensive than low. Yeah, so I would watch out for using these modifiers, or at least test it out before you try it against another person or in a serious game. Homeworld biome. This lets you pick the your homeworld's starting biome. Yeah, let's go ahead and say it. They're cheap, and I think they are probably worth it. I've tried a cavernous race. I think that gives you a lot of extra room for population. I would guess maybe grassland gives you production, and tropical gives you food bonuses. I don't actually know what the difference is between these. Inferno is an easy one to single out, though, as the volcanic planets are incredibly uninhabitable by other races, and they're the ones that turn into Inferno. Volcanic is the naturally occurring type. Cavernous come from arid planets. Grassland comes from Terran, I believe, and tropical comes from swamp. Either way, these planets are all but Gaian for your race if you select one of these, and volcanic planets come with a ton of mineral richness naturally, which makes Inferno a pretty sweet choice, and of course is what the silicoids have. I think these are definitely worth taking, and they have a little bit of synergy with some later choice you get to make. Homeworld minerals. Poor minerals is really brutal. Unless you have, say, production bonus from population, I would almost never consider the poor mineral homeworld, unless you're playing a really large game. In really small games, like small universe, quick, you would be at a huge deficit with a small number of colonies to work with. But as you have more colonies, having one mineral poor planet becomes less of a problem. Still, it cuts down on your ability to expand quickly, and is just real brutal. Rich is great. Ultra rich, I don't know if it's that much better, if it's 60 points better, but it will get you into space. And in combo with increased production, ultra rich, it could let you just like single-handedly pump out a fleet big enough to conquer a neighbor very early in the game. So I could see it as being worth it in special cases when combined with other bonuses. Homeworld specials, artifacts. I wouldn't be surprised if they add in the ability to get any of the Homeworld specials, as they're not very powerful. Each one of these gives you basically a 2-point bonus. Artifacts is to research. There's dark crystals for production, I think. And there's one for food as well. And then there's gold or gems, which is +2 billion credits per turn. So artifacts is all right. It's equivalent to having an extra population of scientists that you never have to deal with or pay for or feed, and it can be nice on your homeworld. I think early in a small game, it has a bigger effect. The more planets you can colonize, the less of an effect it has. Uber Planet. This starts you off with the ability to transform certain planets into planets that are perfectly habitable for you. Note the Gaia planets are better than any of these, even if it's your like natural homeworld. But these are pretty good. However, it is an incredibly industry expensive process. Like it will take you like 70 turns or 60, even into the early mid-game, unless you are heavily production focused. So it is not to be undertaken lightly, as that is a long time. And it costs you 20 points, which may or may not make it worth it, especially since there's no guarantee how many of these planets you're going to find. Once again, this scales better with longer games, longer, wider games, but they are pretty good. I had an arid planet, which are the ones you can turn cavernous, that had 13 population cap. It was huge. And when I did finally turn it cavernous after 55 turns, it increased the population max by 5 to 18, which is pretty serious. Also, terraforming you have to perform multiple times. This you only have to do once. And I don't know if there are specific bonuses attached to Grassland, Tropical, or Inferno, like maybe production bonus, food, whatever. So these, once again, they kind of give you really early terraforming options, but without high production, it's a major waste of points. once again, wider, longer games, this becomes better as you're more likely to find volcanic, the right kinds of planets, which all seem to be about equally available. I will note that, of course, volcanic planets are fairly uninhabitable by most races, so it might actually be a solid tactic in a mid-sized or even small game to go for the Inferno planet type. Research from population. This isn't as big a penalty, I think, as it was in Master of Orion 2, which I played extensively. As I actually had on normal difficulty, I had a decent amount of research without ever putting population into scientist jobs. I started off with artifacts. You find quite a few artifacts throughout the game. I just settled a lot of colonies, built a lot of buildings that naturally produced science for me, and my expansion drove my science. I was really expansion focused, so there's that, and of course then you have to deal with a lot of money because there's a bunch of upkeep, but it can definitely be worked around if you are going super wide and have the space to do so. But this also, this scales better on smaller games where you have to build taller empires, I think. And of course with population growth, as there's like a magic number due to the way population assignments now work. Your first couple, there's diminishing returns, usually starting after the second population on most planets. And researchers do not actually suffer these diminishing returns. So once you have 2 points in production and 2 points in farming, scientists start to look pretty good. And getting a bonus from your scientists is a big deal because otherwise you have to have buildings and research to make your scientists worthwhile. So I think it's both a good penalty to take if you are if you plan to go wide, and it is a good bonus to take if you plan to go tall or high population. Food consumption. So there are 3 different bonuses that affect population growth and food. Remember that food only affects population growth. So these are all pretty intimately interrelated. And I'll go ahead and say I think food consumption is the best. Food from population, so this is the more your farmers become more effective. And population growth, I believe this increases the amount each point of food is worth. I think population growth is the second best, and food from population may be the worst, but it's kind of a toss-up. So here, let me explain my logic. It's not just the fact that you can spend more points on food consumption than anything else. What food consumption does is, for each population you have to feed them from your food production. And this reduces the amount that your population eats. So if you had 4 population, normally they would require 4 food each, or 4 food total. With this first bonus, they would only require 3 food for 4 pop. That's not such a big deal, but every little bit helps. 50% is pretty much a big deal. Suddenly, you'll have 2 food left over when you have 4 pop and 4 output instead of none. And then none is a huge deal. It basically means that all food you produce goes straight to growing your next population point. The beauty of food consumption is wherever you have population, this is working all the time, every time. So take a barren planet where you can't really grow food at the beginning and you have to build buildings that just provide a flat amount of food because you can't have farmers. Those are really common in the game, and settling radiated, toxic, barren, or volcanic planets, those are like half the planet types in the game, means that you won't have population who can farm on them. And since you only start off with 1 population, you usually put it into industry. So if that population isn't eating, that means every building that you build to produce food is going to go straight to growing your next population point instead of feeding that one lone first worker, which is going to give you a huge population, a huge jump on your second population point, especially with none. I found the silicoids to be the most populous race in the galaxy in my 5-hour game by a long shot, probably because they have no food consumption. And they don't use farmers either. They have, their starting penalty is no food from population. So It's pretty sick. No food consumption is amazing. Food from population, if you can find awesome planets, then the benefits are going to be better. The more farming you can do on your planets, the better off you're going to be with this. It'll let you put like 2 population into farming, and your population is going to grow really fast, which is great. If you're not interested in food consumption, food from population would be a great one, and they both combo well with population growth. Population growth, I believe, just increases the value of each point of food you get, effectively making every point of food count for more. It combos well with both of the previous ones, like I've said. I would consider, if you're really interested in population growth, I would either take 2 of these or just food consumption, as I think it is significantly more powerful than the other 2. All right, production from population. Your population is always going to be either sciencing, fooding, or producing. And producing is by far and away, I think, the most valuable, as it lets you build buildings, build ships. You can convert excess production to money quite easily and early in the game. And I think you can even turn it into science later on in the game. So production is never wasted. Once you hit the population max, food from population is only used to feed your dudes, and isn't that worthwhile. And in the very late game, I believe you can actually produce a ton of food thanks to technology. Population growth can be increased, but every little bit helps. Production is always going to be amazing all the time, so production is just really, really good. And it's kind of cheap in comparison to some of these other bonuses, so I would always consider grabbing production bonus if you're playing competitively. And yeah, just good. Pollution, this is caused by high production, and the type of planet biome you have, the closer it is to Gaia, that is, the more full of life and living creatures it is, the worse pollution is going to be on your planet. So a pollution reduction bonus, like this 20 or 50 point one, aren't going to be that important, I think, to volcanic planets, and really don't make any difference to irradiated planets that you will inhabit sometimes. But to your Gaia planet, it's going to be a major pain in the butt. The way pollution works is different from Master of Orion 2. It used to be a diminishing returns mechanic. Now it builds up, and if you let it build up to 100%, it will degrade your biome, and you'll either have to terraform or perhaps use an Uber planet modification to get it back up to snuff. When your biome degrades, I think the only thing it does is reduce your population cap, but in previous iterations of the games, it has made upkeep worse and other things. Anyway, it's bad news. So don't let the pollution, you'll just have to take time out of your production schedule to clean up pollution with your industry. So a 25% reduction is real strong, but it also isn't something you have to have, nor is it always going to be terribly useful. So I would kind of skip on any of these. The penalty could be a real pain in the butt, but with a little bit of technology and maintenance fees for buildings is easy to overcome. Credits from population, I believe this is a huge penalty, and these are huge bonuses. You can, especially if you have the morale bonus. I believe these two synergize really well. Credits from population is a big deal because the tax settings range from 1 BC per pop to 5 BC per pop, and so at 1 BC per pop, you get -10 morale across all your planets. And at 5, you get -50. So it's a 10% morale decrease per billion credits you get from each population. So you can, with credits from population ramped up, you can either set your taxes lower so people are happier, or you can get more out of your higher tax settings. And I think they are appropriately weighted for points here, as credits are pretty damn good, as they're a great diplomatic tool, as well as they let you purchase buildings quickly and are pretty much the only way, besides ramping up your industry, of quickly finishing things. Morale. As far as I know, morale has a single effect, and that is to let you tax your population more. Basically, if you take the 20-point morale, which is quite cheap in my opinion, you can immediately on turn 1 max out your tax setting without suffering any morale penalty on your home planet. Note that this affects every planet and is just, I think morale is one of the most powerful cheap bonuses you can get, as you can basically double your credit income on turn 1 without suffering any people going on strike, which is what low morale does cause. Of course, it's only affected, as far as I can tell, by taxes, and there are some buildings that increase morale, but you'll need them to max out morale, as morale hovers around 50% without buildings. So I think morale is really strong, especially when combined with credits from population, as it lets you ramp your taxes up to insane levels, which gives you tons of credits you can use to buy buildings early on and trade for valuable tech and friendliness later. Ground combat rating. I don't know exactly how good this is. You can always just bomb planets until there are no defenders left. And you can always bring overwhelming numbers of Marines. Marines are a kind of renewable resource, as they just constantly grow on planets that have Marine barracks, and you'll generally have lots of Marines. I think in small games, this is more of a penalty when you really need to make the most of like a single captured planet quickly, and you don't want to blow up all of its buildings and start over. And as the game goes on, there's plenty of tech to weigh out this penalty. And of course, you never have to go into ground combat at all, so not a bad penalty to take, and I think it's weighted correctly. The ground combat bonuses, if you're gonna be invading a lot and you want all those goodies intact, then sure, I think it might be worth it, but that is totally up to your playstyle. Assimilation power, I actually haven't seen this in action. I don't know how long it takes. I'm pretty sure 25% is a pain in the butt, especially for high population enemy worlds. If you have this penalty and you don't mind pissing everyone off, you can of course just bomb populations to 0, never take over enemy planets, use bio-terminators to just nuke all life, whatever you feel like. The assimilation speed, probably good. Immediate, really good if you remember playing Masters of Orion 2 with the Illyrians, who had telepathy, which instantly gave them that. But also pretty expensive for something that you may or may not ever use, depending on how much you attack other people, take their planets, and how much you care about their planets. Gravity tolerance. These are expensive and don't seem to be as good as they were in Master of Orion 2. High gravity used to give you some serious ground combat bonuses. I'll note that you seem to get a deal for selecting all gravity tolerance. I know low gravity is a 50% penalty to everything, like I've said earlier, which is really brutal. But there really weren't that many planets of one gravity or another. And the tech that replaces basically this ability is available in the, I would say, mid-game. Like, it takes quite a while to get there, but it's fairly achievable by the time you have you could have gotten like 12 planets, you could have low gravity and high gravity generators, like canceling this problem out. Mostly, I don't think you need to concern yourself with this, but you could. And as for the point cost, seems high to me, but I don't know. Ship cost minus 20%. This is probably really good, especially when combined with production or even credits, as I think it'll just make your ships cheaper to buy outright as well. And it seems reasonably priced. Though I would definitely consider grabbing one of the production bonuses for a little more cost efficiency. Like, if I'm producing 25% more industry, that seems to be better than what I'm buying being 20% cheaper, and it's 10 points less. But, of course, this is a flat, or an overall cost reduction, which means that if you don't have any population doing industry, this is actually better for that automated tech boost to your industry. beam defense and beam attack. I will say that beams are definitely the best weapons in the game as far as I can tell. Missiles are nice, but they are not nearly as powerful as they were in Master of Orion 2, and they fire much slower, at least in the early game. So beam defense and attack are horrific penalties to take, and you get very little points for them. Defense is probably more manageable than offense. Or, you know, there's a lot of computers and technologies you can use to make up for poor beam attack, but you're always going to be missing. Defense, if you have the armor tech or you're just tough enough, I suppose you can tank it out, or you invest in shields. So I'd say it's easier to overcome defense than attack, and I would usually shy away from these penalties. As for taking them as bonuses, there's not much that gives you a beam defense bonus, so that's kind of, it doesn't seem to be, kind of unique. There's not much tech that makes up or that mimics this bonus, or stacks with this bonus, so I think beam defense is pretty good, but of course there are computers which I think nullify it. Beam attack is obviously really good, and the more attack you have, the better, I think. But I could be wrong, and of course computers mimic this bonus as well. So you can totally skip this zone and feel good about your game, or you can invest in it as you see fit, but the penalties are kind of brutal. Enable ship auto repair. I never found this to be much of a problem, and it's really expensive, but later in the game it could be a big deal if you just want to crush steamroll people. However, if you're not fighting, this is a waste, and a big waste at that, so that's what I think about that. Security, the things spies can do are really brutal. So I think this minus 20% security penalty is kind of rough if you expect to have long-term diplomatic if you don't expect to just crush everyone instantly upon meeting them, then security is going to be bad, because the things they can do to you are really bad, like make your planet revolt and leave your empire, which is horrific, or steal your technology. They can do other horrible things too, but those are the two that really stick out in my mind. And the bonuses you get from technology are like a 2% increase in security, or 6, or 15. This is a huge penalty compared to the bonuses you can get from tech. So the bonuses here, well, I don't know if they're that good either, as they only apply when someone is actively trying to spy on you, and you just don't know when and how often that's going to happen. So I'd say they're kind of intermittent bonuses, or unpredictable. Mission duration. So this is how quickly you can enact your spy effects. And I can tell you that if you're playing defensively, the mission duration penalty is basically nothing. If you're never going to spy or try and do espionage-y stuff to other people, you're just going to protect yourself with your spies, then mission duration is the perfect penalty to take. If you are, however, going to be using your spies against other people, the mission duration bonuses are not bad either. And of course, like I've said, the things you can do to other people are kind of horrific with spies. And the shorter the mission is, the less the enemy security has a chance to screw over and capture or kill your spy. So mission duration, both good penalties and good benefits. Security, I would go not as good as duration. Trading. Trade treaties bonus. I assume this is really good if you're going to be, 25% more credits from trade treaties. I signed some trade treaties, I would say, in the early game with people, and was getting 12 credits a turn from them, so I assume they were getting 16 since they were human. And that can really stack up with multiple trade treaties. Other races like to give you trade treaties. It's really good if you meet people and can maintain friendship with them, which isn't too tricky in the game, but might come at some other costs, some opportunity costs when it comes to where you can settle or how much you're willing to piss people off. Still, I think it's pretty solid. I think it's fairly well priced, considering it's not nearly the other economic bonuses over here. I'll note that there aren't many early texts that give you credits per turn bonuses. So the credits from Phwop and these two trading ones are both quite good. Trade goods bonus, this is when you very early in the game unlock the ability to set a planet to produce trade goods, which just generates extra money instead of production. And this is a solid bonus to that production. It does mean that some of your planets will have to be set to making only money and nothing else. And it is affected by how high your production is. So this synergizes well with production bonuses. But it also means that one of your planets, at least, needs to not be producing other stuff. Later in the game, when your empire's wide, you've built everything and you have high production from technologies and buildings, this has pretty insane ramifications, whereas the trade treaties bonus probably doesn't ramp up quite as hard. But of course, it means you're only using your production, or that you're using some of your production just to make money. And of course, you could be building the ships that you're going to buy or whatever. Money is flexible but inefficient compared to actual production. Ground units, so you can generate Marines faster, and you can host more Marines at each colony. These synergize well with each other. And ground combat rating. If you're going to be using lots of Marines, it is cheap to make them really effective and powerful. And it means that other people will have to bomb the crap out of your planets because they won't be able to invade them on the ground. So you're either going to be fighting a ground war, but you can, since you can skip that, it might make these not really worth it. As is, if you are going to be using Marines, these are both quite solid. As it will let you take over a lot more alien planets with your ground forces to have like a large supply of Marines in your empire. Ship improvements, combat speed bonus, travel speed, stealth. Combat speed bonus, I think, is appropriately weighted, but I could see some really sneaky situations where you went with long-range missile ships and just outran the enemy, who could never possibly engage you. But if they have good shields, it might not make a difference. It's tough to tell. There's probably some gamey balance issues with combat speed bonus that you could take advantage of if you really study the game mechanics. But I think mostly this is about right when it comes to just playing the game normally, as combat speed doesn't seem to play much difference in the game, since most things just rush straight into each other. Travel speed, so this is between star systems, is incredibly good. You do spend a number of turns zooming around inside of star systems, and it doesn't help you there, as it's just one turn will get you to one planet and one turn to the next, or to a warp point. But when you're traveling between star systems, a 25% increase is really quite good. It'll let you expand. Your fleets will get there sooner with the same drives. But drives, more advanced technology does kind of catch up on this. However, the more advanced your technology, the more you get out of this bonus. This of course is better on, this will be good all the time. It is much better on bigger maps, but being able to race your opponent by a turn or two to wherever their fleet needs to be is always going to be nice. So I think that's appropriate, 30 points. Stealth, I don't know exactly what this does. My thought would be that you are impossible to detect until you are right next to an enemy ship, but it could be like they have to have really fantastic scanners to see you at more than point-blank range. How well this works against the computer or how beneficial it is, it doesn't give you any special capacities. It just means they don't know when you're coming. I think it's better against human opponents than the AI would be my thought, but it definitely allows you some sneak attacks. Otherwise, it's a little expensive for what I think it does, but it may do, I don't know, it may do other things, like other empires may not realize how strong your fleet is, or I don't know. Probably best against humans, and you really have to work it. All right, diplomacy, improved negotiations. I think it just straight up makes diplomacy easier. Against the AI, could definitely be broken. Against human players, I have absolutely no idea what it does, if anything. I just tend to shy away from that one in particular. Having more money would allow you to improve negotiations in another way all on its own, and is a significantly better, more flexible bonus. Improved disposition. Positive actions have better diplomatic consequences, and negative actions have softer ones. This will help you really own the AI when it comes to diplomacy and getting those trade treaties, especially in conjunction with with improved negotiations. But once again, I just kind of shy away from that, as I want bonuses I can conquer the universe with, not piece it out, I guess. Command points. Command points are good. They let you host more and powerful ships. These are a little expensive, I think, for their output, but not bad. You only get command points. You have a starting amount, and you get them from, I think, star bases, and some research just gives you like more per star base or like a flat amount. So if you want to host a large fleet, you need a lot of command points. And if you don't have much room to do it, say you're on a small map, then the command point bonus may be for you. If you're on a large map and you think you have time to build star bases all over the place, then you're going to be able to generate a solid number of command points without any bonus. I think it's a little expensive, but then again, it might not be too much. And if you just want to spam military outposts or other command, or like frigates and destroyers and titans and doomstars, then command points may be for you. It is not hard to use up your command points, so I think it will always be nice to have the bonus, but it is not always necessary as long as you can build lots of star bases. And you can build one per planet, so more planets you expect to control, the less necessary a bonus is. And lastly, starting technology. 20 points to begin with the technology that'll take you, I think, 6 to 8 turns to research early in the game. Not bad. I can tell you that biology will give you access to food and a little bit of research producing 2 different buildings you can build. Government will allow you to start with some morale boosting stuff. You don't need it on your home planet, but it is nice when you expand, especially if you're going to be taxing the crap out of your citizens and don't have a morale boost. Physics, I think, is research. Physics comes with a better starting laser weapon, so if you're really planning to go like guns blazing from the very beginning, physics might be worth it. And engineering, I can't remember. Oh, automated production facility, like the linchpin of all starting colonies. Engineering is okay. For 20 points, I wouldn't take it. Unless perhaps you are starting on a really small galaxy where you expect to start fighting or whatever very, very early, interacting with other enemies. But if you have time to expand, the starting tech is going to be a drop in the bucket at the expense of some really powerful long-term bonuses you could have. So that wraps up my look at the custom race options for the new Master of Orion. Who knows if they'll change any in the future. The game is still in early access, but once again is a solid reproduction of everything I ever liked about the Master of Orion series. I would say it's definitely simple compared to the options we have now for our 4X games, but it makes a really solid, I think, fast multiplayer game, and like hitting next turn comes quickly and easily and smoothly, so it can be a really fast-paced game to play, unlike some of the more demanding games like Endless Legend and Endless Space. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If it helped you out in any way or you found it informative, then give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed already to my channel, please do. And until next time, my friends, remember, it's all downhill from here.